Shellenberger e Elizondo, cosa sanno veramente sugli UAP? In questa puntata, analizziamo le loro testimonianze e cerchiamo di capire se il governo americano nasconde informazioni, se esistono programmi segreti e se ci sono state ritorsioni contro chi ha provato a parlare. Gli spezzoni di filmati sono sottotitolati con traduzione automatica, ci scusiamo per eventuali errori.
Michael Shellenberger è fondatore e presidente di Environmental Progress. Environment, dalla rivista Time, lavora come consulente ambientale per i governi di diversi paesi. Molte delle sue idee per lo sviluppo delle energie rinnovabili sono state adottate dall'amministrazione Obama. Scrive di energia e ambiente per varie testate, tra cui The New York Times, un'organizzazione di ricerca indipendente con sede a Berkeley, in California. Nominato nel 2008 Hero of the Washington Post e The Wall Street Journal. Nel 2015 ha pubblicato An Eco-Modernist Manifesto, appello per un ambientalismo fondato sulla crescita economica. Si deve a lui un momento particolarmente significativo nell'audizione innanzi al Congresso, che è stato quello in cui la rappresentante Nancy Mace, che ha ricoperto il ruolo di copresidente dell'udienza, ha tirato fuori un documento di 12 pagine che presumibilmente descriveva nei dettagli un programma classificato di recupero di UAP in seguito a un incidente, noto come Immaculate Constellation. Il rapporto era stato consegnato al Congresso dal Shellenberger, il quale ha dichiarato all'udienza che un informatore, un attuale o ex funzionario del governo degli Stati Uniti, aveva redatto il rapporto, affermando che il potere esecutivo ha gestito le questioni relative agli UAP senza la conoscenza, la supervisione o l'autorizzazione del Congresso per un certo periodo, forse decenni. Dopo aver inserito il documento nel verbale del Congresso, la signora Mace ha affermato di essere stata avvisata che fare riferimento al nome del programma in un contesto pubblico l'avrebbe fatta finire su una lista, al che Michael Shellenberger ha risposto con la famosa frase in slang «Vieni da me, fratello, io credo», manifestandole così solidarietà.
Il rapporto del denunciatario afferma che esiste un volume significativo di rapporti di intelligence che documentano incontri diretti con fenomeni anomali non identificati UAP o oggetti volanti non identificati UFO. Questi incontri sono accessibili nei database UMINT Intelligence Umana della comunità di intelligence. Immaculate Constellation include un'alta qualità di imagery intelligence IMINT e aggiunge il rapporto del denunciatario anche measurement and signature intelligence MASINT sugli UAP. Le fonti sono una miscela di raccolte di testimonianze dirette e incidentali, posizionate in bassa orbita terrestre LEO nell'alta atmosfera, nonché a quote raggiunte dall'aviazione militare e civile. Il rapporto al Congresso descrive in dettaglio vari UAP. Dal 1991 al 2022, le forme più comuni di UAP sono riportate in questo dataset del governo degli Stati Uniti. Si tratta di sfere, dischi, piatti, ovali, tic-tac, triangoli, oggetti a forma di boomerang, testa di freccia e forme irregolari e organiche. Il rapporto descrive vari incidenti trovati nei database UMINT. Uno di questi ha coinvolto sfere che circondavano e costringevano un F-22 a uscire dalla sua zona di pattuglia. L'aereo ha cambiato traiettoria e ha cercato di evitarle, ma è stato intercettato e circondato da circa una mezza dozzina di UAP. Un UAP si è avvicinato a meno di 12 metri dalla zona direttamente a destra della cabina di pilotaggio. Lì, l'UAP ha stabilito una correlazione spaziale rigida con il caccia, mantenendo la sua posizione esatta e orientamento parallelo con la cabina di pilotaggio nonostante ripetute manovre evasive e rollii da parte dell'aereo. Circondato dai presunti UAP ostili, il caccia è stato costretto a uscire dall'area della missione, scortato dalla formazione di UAP. In un altro incidente, l'equipaggio di una portaerei della Marina ha osservato una piccola sfera arancione-rossa che discendeva rapidamente da una quota molto alta, fino a 100 a 200 metri direttamente sopra il ponte di volo della portaerei. Gli UAP sembravano emettere una luce arancione-rossa morbida che, bizzarramente, non illuminava l'oceano o il ponte di volo della nave, nonostante l'apparenza visiva di una luminosità intensa. La superficie dell'UAP è stata osservata come dinamica, agitata come la superficie del Sole. Da quando ho riportato queste informazioni il mese scorso, un'altra fonte mi ha riferito di aver visto un video ad alta definizione e a colori di circa 13 minuti di un UAP sferico bianco che emergeva dall'oceano a circa 32 km dalla costa del Kuwait. È stato filmato da un elicottero. Poi, a metà del video, il testimone ha detto che l'oggetto è stato raggiunto da un altro oggetto che è entrato brevemente nel filmato da sinistra, prima di muoversi rapidamente fuori dal fotogramma. La persona ha trovato il video su CPR, la rete sicura che il Dipartimento della Difesa usa per trasmettere informazioni classificate.
That a new unnamed government whistleblower has come forward asserting that a highly classified program exists dedicated to recovery and reverse engineering of UAP technologies. Can you give us what specific evidence you have or that your source provided you to substantiate the claims about the existence of the Immaculate Constellation program?
Well, you have the report in front of you now, so you can see it for yourself. I checked the report, and I did not find it based on existing cases. It was new cases for me. I hadn't found anybody. So that answered for me that it was not obviously circular reporting, which is one of the big concerns in this space. I also had the name of the program confirmed by more than one additional source. And then I checked to make sure that the source was who they claimed to be.
Okay.
I should also
È un ex agente segreto statunitense della United States Army Counterintelligence e dell'Under Secretary of Defense for Intelligence ed ex capo del programma di identificazione delle minacce aerospaziali avanzate del Pentagono. Dopo le sue dimissioni nel 2017, è entrato a far parte della società To The Stars come direttore della sicurezza globale e dei programmi speciali. Elizondo ha lasciato l'azienda alla fine del 2020. La società ha prodotto la serie di documentari di History Channel Unidentified Inside America's UFO Investigation, in cui è il protagonista. Elizondo è noto principalmente per il suo ruolo di ex direttore dell'ormai cessato Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program, un programma da $22 milioni avviato dalla Defense Intelligence Agency per studiare fenomeni aerei non identificati. Dal 2008 fino alle sue dimissioni nel 2017, Elizondo ha lavorato con l'ufficio del sottosegretario alla difesa per l'intelligence del Pentagono. Durante questo periodo è stato il direttore dell'Advanced Aerospace Threat Identification Program, un programma governativo la cui attività veniva svolta in segreto. Elizondo ha anche distribuito alla stampa 3 video realizzati dai piloti delle portaerei della Marina degli Stati Uniti USS Nimitz e USS Theodore Roosevelt, conosciuti come i video UFO del Pentagono. La pubblicazione è stata accompagnata dalla prima stampa ufficiale sull'esistenza della ATIP. Nell'aprile 2019 la Marina ha riconosciuto di aver redatto nuove linee guida per i piloti e altro personale per segnalare gli incontri con aeromobili non identificati, ed Elizondo ha dichiarato al Washington Post che è stata la più grande decisione che la Marina abbia preso da decenni.
Voglio essere chiaro, gli UAP sono reali. Tecnologie avanzate non realizzate dal nostro governo o da qualsiasi altro governo stanno monitorando installazioni militari sensibili in tutto il mondo. Inoltre, gli Stati Uniti sono in possesso di tecnologie UAP, così come alcuni dei nostri avversari. Credo che siamo nel mezzo di una corsa agli armamenti segreta che dura da decenni, finanziata con denaro dei contribuenti malgestito e nascosta ai nostri rappresentanti eletti e agli organismi di sorveglianza. Un piccolo gruppo all'interno del nostro stesso governo, coinvolto nel tema degli UAP, ha creato una cultura di soppressione e intimidazione di cui sono stato personalmente vittima, insieme a molti dei miei ex colleghi. Questo attraverso indagini penali non giustificate, molestie e tentativi di distruggere la credibilità delle persone. La maggior parte degli americani sarebbe scioccata nel sapere che l'Ufficio Affari Pubblici del Pentagono impiega apertamente un ufficiale, professionista in operazioni psicologiche, come unico punto di contatto per qualsiasi domanda relativa agli UAP proveniente da cittadini e media. Questo è inaccettabile. Molti dei miei ex colleghi ed io abbiamo fornito testimonianze classificate sia al Dipartimento della Difesa che all'Ispettore Generale della Comunità di Intelligence. Successivamente, molti di noi sono stati bersagliati con minacce alle nostre carriere, alle nostre autorizzazioni di sicurezza e persino alle nostre vite. Questo non è esagerazione, ma un fatto genuino, e questo è profondamente sbagliato. Per risolvere questi problemi, propongo 3 azioni principali. Innanzitutto, il Congresso e il Presidente dovrebbero creare un unico punto di contatto, responsabile di un approccio di governo complessivo al tema degli UAP. Attualmente, la Casa Bianca, la CIA, la NASA, il Pentagono, il Dipartimento dell'Energia e altri giocano un ruolo, ma nessuno sembra essere qualificato, portando a poteri incontrollati e a corruzione. In secondo luogo, abbiamo bisogno di una strategia nazionale sugli UAP che promuova la trasparenza e contribuisca a ripristinare la fiducia del pubblico americano in un momento in cui questa è ai minimi storici. Questa strategia dovrebbe includere un approccio complessivo di governo, includendo le comunità accademiche e scientifiche, il settore privato e i nostri partner e alleati internazionali. Infine, il Congresso dovrebbe creare un ambiente protetto affinché i whistleblower, desiderosi di fare la cosa giusta, possano farsi avanti senza paura. Attualmente, questi whistleblower soffrono a causa dello stigma, di un codice del silenzio e di preoccupazioni per eventuali ritorsioni. Dovrebbero essere incoraggiati a parlare, attraverso modalità che li proteggano da ogni forma di ritorsione. Politiche e procedure dovrebbero garantire questa protezione. E per coloro che si rifiutano di collaborare, spetta ai membri di questo comitato e ad altri legislatori utilizzare il loro potere di citazione in giudizio contro testimoni ostili.
Biologics, would you agree that it's likely that they are being piloted by some mind-body connection?
Ma'am, I think it is safe to presume here that they are being intelligently controlled because some cases seem to anticipate our maneuvers, and in other cases they seem to, I came across an email where the word stalked was used in a very secure email between Navy officers discussing their ships being pursued by a UAP.
In our previous panel, we had Grush, and he had testified to say that some of these were interdimensional beings. Can you speak on that at all?
Ma'am, I'm not qualified, certainly as a scientist or otherwise, to speculate points of origin. I looked at everything from a scientific perspective. So if you look at, for example, instantaneous acceleration, which was one of the observables of the program that I belong to, ATIP, the human body can withstand about 9 G-forces for a short period of time before you suffer negative biological consequences, blackouts and ultimately redouts and even death. Comparison, our best technology, the F-16, which is it's an older platform, but one of our most highly maneuverable aircraft, manned aircraft, made by General Dynamics, can perform about 17 or 18 G-forces before you start having structural failure, meaning that the airframe begins to disintegrate while you're flying. The vehicles we're talking about are performing in excess of 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 Gs.
So would it be safe to infer that they're living craft?
I'm not prepared at this point to state for the record is something alive or not, because even that definition is hard. There was a time in science we thought that life required oxygen, and we now know that's not true. There are anaerobic bacteria that thrive in oxygen environments that lack oxygen. And also same with photosynthesis. When I was in college, I was told everything is derived from photosynthesis as a form of energy. In reality, that's not true. There are things that live off of chemosynthesis. So we're constantly having to reevaluate our understanding of what the definition of life is.
Mm-hmm. Do any of you ever come across reports from people that claim to have firsthand experiences with these entities, whatever they might be, or these aircraft, and then as a result, whether or not they're religious, find that these things will automatically disappear? Anyone, and this is open to any of you on the panel. So just real quick, because I'm running out of time. Lou?
Ma'am, I've always been a nuts and bolts kind of guy when I was at ATIP. I was focusing more on the performance characteristics and less on the potential occupants.
Okay, the reason I ask is because it seems like just based on our conversations that we've had people that say that there are good and bad of whatever these things are. And so my concern from a national security perspective is A, that true?
And the ranking member 5 additional minutes for questions without objection, so ordered. Mr. Elizondo, were you read into the Immaculate Constellation program?
I would not be authorized to confirm nor deny the existence of any ongoing or past program, especially as it relates to a special access program, either by name or trigraph.
Okay, and then does the U.S. government or private contractors, do they work with other foreign countries, China, for example, to exchange data, quote from a source, that intelligence data about UAP?
Let me see if I can answer that a little bit more generally, ma'am, if I may. We do have foreign material exploitation programs. That is something that is widely known, and that term itself is unclassified. How exactly that works becomes a bit sensitive. A discussion we could certainly have in a closed session if you like. We do work with international partners and allies quite often, not just in military exercises and workups, but in other intelligence efforts as well.
In terms of material that's given to private contractors, is certain material given to certain contractors because of their experience? So, for example, if it's related to submerged and undersea propulsion, would it go to a general contractor like General Dynamics?
Yes, ma'am, absolutely correct. Different contractors have different levels of expertise.
What's Lockheed's expertise?
Aerospace, ma'am.
In the UAP space, that's all that they wouldn't do submerged.
No, I didn't say that, ma'am.
Okay.
Lockheed Martin and others do quite a bit of work both in our atmosphere, in space, and even underwater. There are certain efforts to. It's a tough question you're asking. You put me on the spot here.
I'm looking for the answer.
Yes, ma'am. No, they are involved in a lot. I would rather let Lockheed Martin explain the different domains that they are involved with. Probably am not authorized to discuss that, but they are involved in a lot of different areas and domains.
Admiral, flight safety risks for our pilots, based on what you've experienced and seen in your career.
They're extensive, and the one exercise I referred to where I received the email that was then deleted was the pilots, and this is worth bringing out. There are debunkers out there who have said the Go Fast video was just a balloon. That was only one video that was released. There were dozens of these encounters that pilots, friends of Ryan Graves, who's in this room right here, witnessed and caused significant safety concerns. And to almost call out and exercise it and shut it down, which is very compressed, and the carrier's getting ready for deployment, and the pilots have to get certified to land on a carrier, it's extreme, to say the least.
All right, I have two last questions. Real quickly, Mr. Shellenberger, how do we get more whistleblowers to come forward?
Well, this hearing is very important, and obviously, I can't encourage whistleblowers to obtain information, but I can guarantee that I will protect them and go to prison to protect their identities if they come to me.
Yes, sir. Okay, my last question. The first hearing we had on this, I'd never been briefed on UAPs or what they were, biologics, non-human, et cetera. How would you define, each of you, my last question, how would you define non-human biologics, non-human intelligence? What are we actually talking about? Admiral, and we'll go down the line.
I don't think it's a stretch when you look at the diversity of life on this planet and the size of this universe to think that there would be more diverse, higher order, non-human intelligences throughout the universe, and that's probably what's visiting us.
I would take the scientific approach. The definition would be the ability to react to a stimulus in a manner that requires an intellectual thought process.
I just don't know.
I think we must be modest in our assumptions that we're looking for intelligence. That could be biological, it might not.
Non-biological, but what non-biological intelligence, what does that mean though?
Artificial intelligence, ML, machines. We assume that all intelligence would be like us. And every time we look out in the universe, we are humbled relative to what we don't know in terms of the forms of intelligence and what it may take. I can assure you I probably can't ask you your question, but I think the ultimate answer is going to surprise us all.
And then Mr. Garcia, you had a few closing remarks.
And I know we're about to hit votes here, so I'll be brief. Just I want to thank you all for being here. I want to thank Chairwoman Mace especially for holding this important bipartisan hearing. And I want to thank all the committee members that are interested in this topic. I think our commitment to all of you and all the folks that have contacted us, and certainly to the advocates and the pilots, is that we need to continue investigating UAPs. I think the country the country is owed explanations and ensure that the safety or national security is always protected. This is a conversation and questioning that must continue, so I'm very grateful to all of you. And I also just want to add, just personally, I think it's really important for me, two things guide my questioning and my observations on UAPs. One is we should always be guided by facts, science, and data, and stay serious on those issues. And the second thing is I think that we should not limit our imagination and our thoughts and our curiosity on what UAPs could actually be. And I think those two things for me are really important, and I'm grateful for all of you to be here. So with that, I yield back.
Okay, and we have Mr. Ogles, who is on the way. He's going to be here any second. Is that correct? We'll check, and he'll be the last member with questions that we have today, and then we have votes. So we want to thank you all for being here. I want to thank Mr. Garcia and folks on both sides of the aisle for being here today and being patient. We have a lot more questions, and I hope that this will open the door to more hearings in the future. I obviously would like to know how much taxpayers are spending on this. You have the right to know, but also if we're spending money on something that doesn't exist, why are we spending the money? And if it does exist, why are we hiding it from the public? And of course, our national security is a huge issue, because if there's technology that could harm us or our allies that are in the hands of our adversaries, we obviously want to stay ahead of that to the best of our ability to ensure that that technology is not in the hands of someone who could use it against us or our allies anywhere in the world. So, Mr. Ogles, you're just in time, babe. I will recognize you for 5 minutes of questioning before we head on out today.
Well, thank you all for being here, and Madam Chairwoman, I'm out of breath because I sprinted to get here, but this is an important hearing. I think we all know that there's something going on. Mr. Elizondo, based on your knowledge of UAP sightings, do you believe it's fair to say that they are especially common near nuclear sites?
Yes, sir. Mr. Congressman, I absolutely am convinced of that, as are my colleagues inside the government.
And the reason why I pose that question, and this has been one of my talking points from the beginning, is, Oak Ridge is in Tennessee. The so-called weather balloon that drifted, that we now know was controlled, it passed near Oak Ridge. It obviously is a sensitive site, both of interest to our adversaries and to whatever else this is. Because we know that at military installations, at sensitive locations, such as nuclear facilities, that we're seeing this take place. So the question is what is it? Do you believe they've caused an irregular activity, and why might they be interested in those sites?
Sir, in some cases, it's actually regular activity. You'd be surprised. There's actually documentation right now that's been submitted. It's not just Oak Ridge. It's Savannah River Site, SRS. It's also Los Alamos. A lot of our sensitive R&D locations appear to be under some sort of surveillance and monitoring. Why? Well, because a lot of innovation comes out of those areas, a lot of new technologies, a lot of, if you will, disruptive technologies that we use for our national defense originates out of those locations, and advanced concepts in physics as well. So if I was doing any type of reconnaissance, even on a foreign adversary, that's a great target to start with.
Sure, and again, this has been one of my talking points. I do have questions. What role might the Department of Energy or its subsidiaries or affiliates have in this type of technology, or possessing this type of technology, whether it's ours or others? Mr. Gallaudet, I think your testimony has been pretty clear, but would you please reiterate that do you believe UAPs pose a threat to pilots? Excuse me.
Yes, sir. Absolutely. They were threatening Navy pilots during the exercise that my people were involved with in 2015. And it's my understanding they're risking pilot safety, commercial and military today.
Well, considering, and I understand that there's a need in some cases to keep certain technologies secret, but you believe that it is posing a threat to our personnel, correct?
Yes, sir.
So I think it's reasonable to conclude that if there's a threat to our personnel who are serving our country faithfully, that there be oversight.
100%, Congressman. And in fact, that's the one thing that we've not talked about enough during this hearing is the fact that the government executive branch not sharing with Congress what it knows about UAP infringes on your legislative and oversight responsibilities to such an extent that's very concerning. I mean, what else are we, if you look at national security or intelligence or foreign affairs or appropriations, you all have oversight and legislative responsibility regarding those. This UAP issue may be the greatest issue of our time, and it's being hid from you.
Well, I mean, and to your point, I think we've seen over the decades that we have certain adversaries like China, like Russia, that technologically speaking are not as advanced as us, that they lack some of the lethality that we have, and that we've seen that they've gone after our technologies and in some cases succeeded, in particular with missile technology. And so again, my concern, whether this technology emanates from us or otherworldly, that we know that we possess it. And where's the accountability? Where are the stopgaps? What are the guarantees that if this were to fall in enemy hands that it isn't immediately weaponized against us? And I'll say this, it is clear from my experience and what I've seen that there is something out there. The question is it ours? Is it someone else's? Or is it otherworldly? And Madam Chairman, I would posit that as the legislative body, as the regulatory body, we must know. And anyone who prevents us from gaining access to that information, I would consider that criminality. Because we have U.S. personnel who may very well be in harm's way. We have technology that ultimately may threaten our very existence. With that, Madam Chairman, I thank you for your indulgence, and I yield back.
Thank you, Mr. Ogles. And with that and without objection, all members will have 5 legislative days within which to submit materials and to submit additional written questions for the witnesses, which will be forwarded to the witnesses for their response. If there's no further business without objection, the subcommittee stands adjourned.
E con questo si conclude la nostra terza puntata dedicata all'audizione pubblica sugli UAP tenutasi al Congresso americano il 13 novembre scorso. Nella prossima, approfondiremo i commenti e le considerazioni su questo importante evento. Iscrivetevi al canale per non perdere le nostre conclusioni e analisi.